Rome connected her new territories via a network of paved roads. This system still determines the transport map of Europe.
And that's an interesting thing. When you ask me this question, what I would leave for the people behind after me, you wouldn't think about roads.
Yeah.
And yet, this is the thing that is most important nowadays.
Well, after all roads lead to Rome.
Hello.
Hi everyone.
I'm Waldemar.
And I'm Weronika.
And today is one of those days when you think about the ancient Rome. I found this video. It's pretty popular, and it's the whole history of the ancient Rome in 20 minutes. I don't know how they were able to pack this in the 20 minutes. Do you know something about the ancient Rome?
No, nothing. Never heard of it. Who's that?
No, but I think I know like the basics, but
I feel like I know more about it than some other periods of history. Like I would know a lot about the First World War, Second World War, of course, because from movies and we watch a lot about it, even on this channel. But then going backwards, there would be a long period where it's completely blank for me and I know nothing. But I know a lot about ancient Rome and ancient Greece and stuff that comes before that, because as we said a lot on this channel, that's the kind of curricular that it's followed in Poland, that you always do it at the beginning of the year and you always do it at the beginning of the school when you still have your new utensils and your notebooks and you actually think you're going to study every day after school. So I do remember highlighting and color coding some information about ancient Rome and not much after that during the school year. So I think I will know something from school for sure.
Yeah, I definitely know more about ancient Rome than I know about ancient Greece or ancient Egypt.
Oh really? I would say I know the least. I would know more about Greece than Rome, I think.
Oh,
just because it's a bit later.
Rome is more interesting, for me,
yeah,
with all those military battles. And also I watched Oversimplified lately.
Oh yeah.
The new video, and before that about the Punic Wars. Yeah. So it was a lot about Rome then. So I know something, but the Rome was changing. Before it was complete democracy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not really democracy, but you had those consuls, and there were two of them. And after that was Julius Caesar, and then it was just one dictator. And it was changing, and then basically Rome was existing until 16th century, 17th century?
Until, something like that.
But then there was a division, I think even later maybe. Technically, the Holy Roman Empire. The Holy Roman Empire was, when it was basically only Germany.
Mm-hmm.
I think it ceased to exist in pretty modern times, like 18th century, I don't think 19, but I think 18, I'm not sure, but more recent than you would think. Yeah,
I think after the fall, the barbarians, I think it was still kind of there. It wasn't like it immediately ceased to exist, I think.
No, but like I said, Holy Roman Empire existed a long time after, but it was mostly Germany. It wasn't like those territories that you would think when you think about ancient Rome. It was Roman Empire, but there was no Rome in it.
Okay, well, let's find out all about it.
Yeah. Ready?
Yes, always.
Here are the letters the Romans gave us. And here are the countries whose languages derive from Latin. Today they cover half the world. As for the ancient Romans, the boundaries of their state encompassed their entire civilization. The Roman peace, or Pax Romana, serves as the first example of globalization. Let's take a walk across 12 centuries of the Roman history. And yes, those numerals are also a Roman legacy.
That I know.
Yeah, we know that, right?
What is Rome?
I know about the walls.
A city on 7 hills, capital of Italy. But that is today. And 2,000 years ago, there it is. Another 1,000 years ago, there. A tiny tribal settlement of the Latins by the river Tiber. How did this manage to conquer the world? First, it was lucky with its neighbors. To the north, the Etruscans of modern Tuscany, a mysterious people whose language has never been fully deciphered. To the south, Greek colonies. These peoples all traded with each other. It was at the crossroads of their trade routes that Rome appeared. From the very start, Rome has been an open city, a safe haven for outcasts, murderers, runaway slaves. Rome offered migrants a unique opportunity to become fully fledged citizens.
Like Australia.
This will make Rome the largest metropolitan city of the ancient world. The Romans themselves believed they were descendants of refugees from the Middle East who had survived the Trojan War. Romulus and Remus were the great-grandchildren of the Trojan hero Aeneas. Nursed by an Italian she-wolf, the brothers quarreled where to site the future world capital. Romulus killed Remus, gave his name to the city, and became its first ruler. As legend has it, there were 7 kings, each of which enjoyed a lengthy reign and left some beneficial legacy. A calendar, a sewer system, or the Capitolium, a temple to the senior god Jupiter. Much of what the Romans later became famous for, aqueducts, bridges, perhaps even the gladiatorial games, were borrowed from the Etruscans. This people had invented the Latin alphabet by adapting the Greek letters for their own needs. It's not surprising that their last kings were Etruscan. Rome borrowed her military and government organization from them, while maintaining her stern, patriarchal simplicity.
Okay, if you're a king of Rome, one of the 7, and you can leave one thing behind, like, you can choose a sewer system or a calendar, but what would you like to leave behind?
I don't know. You kind of get me by surprise now.
We always ask each other this kind of questions.
But I can only use those things from those times?
Yeah, well, you can't say, like, spaceships, but I'm thinking I'd like a library, like the Alexandria library.
Okay.
That's mine. You can't use it anymore.
I don't know, like something like a language or like a calendar, something that would serve people for generations.
Okay, so the calendar maybe, or a written language or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. I would need more time to think about it.
Okay, let us know in the comments if you have any ideas what you would like to leave behind.
In 509, Rome was shaken by a sex scandal. The son of King Tarquin the Proud raped the chaste Lucretia. Tarquin was expelled, making him the last king of Rome.
Not the last rapist, though.
The Romans decided to prevent any such concentration of power ever again. From 509 onwards, they elected 2 consuls to serve a year apiece, instead of a monarch. The consuls were controlled by the Senate. This consisted of 300 fathers, patres in Latin, hence the term patricians. Those not so lucky to be born into the right families joined the plebs. Even if they were as rich as patricians, they were not entitled to take up positions in the state. It is in the 200-year struggle for these rights that the Republic, loosely meaning public thing, will be formed. The plebeians would make up the backbone of the army, and to have their own way, they would threaten the fledgling state with emigration to a neighboring hill. Each time, the scared patricians caved in, introducing, for instance, the special position of a representative or tribune of the plebeians. These had the right to veto any decisions of the consuls. One of the main achievements of the struggle was the publication of the first written laws. By 287 BC, the plebeians had achieved complete equality of rights with the patricians. The unity of Rome found its best expression in the formula Senatus Populusque Romanus, the Senate and the Roman people, which still adorns the manhole covers in Rome.
What? But they are not the same, right?
What?
They have those on the sewers in Rome, but I guess they are not the same.
I don't think they are the same though. Maybe some of them they were able to like renovate and reuse, but I think they have to be made.
But do you think they are using them on the streets, like some plates from 2,000 years ago?
I don't think so.
In Rome, they have so many, those ancient things.
Mm-hmm.
How do you say it?
Monuments?
Yeah, monuments. That they are basically using them everywhere. Like you go to the restaurant, they give you like a fork that is 2,000 years old. They're like, oh, we have this shit everywhere here. Don't worry.
Take it home if you want.
In 390 BC, the history of Rome could have come to an end. The city was unexpectedly taken by the Gauls. The guard dogs had sensed no danger, for which they would be crucified every year since. Geese awoke the last protectors of the Capitoline Hill fortress instead, saving Rome from complete destruction. The shaken Romans conducted a military reform. The Roman legion was divided into manipuli, making it more mobile in battle. The Roman army spent the next 100 years in constant wars. Instead of simply imposing a tribute on the conquered, the Romans would enter into a treaty of alliance with them, and the loyal allies supply Rome with a never-ending stream of recruits. Thanks to this, the Roman legions were able to stand their ground in battle with the most efficient fighting force of the time, the all-conquering Macedonian phalanx, led by Pyrrhus, a relative of Alexander the Great. The last stronghold of resistance in Italy, the Greek city of Tarentum, then hired the most costly and celebrated contemporary warlord of the time to defend against Roman expansion. Having conquered Tarentum and reached Sicily, Rome now had to take on a much more dangerous adversary, Carthage, lord of the Mediterranean.
You remember that?
The Romans called the Phoenicians of Carthage Punics, hence the Punic Wars. They were fought over the next 100 years. In 149 BC, Rome had taken the greater part of Punic territory and that of their allies, but after each defeat, the trading power of Carthage would rapidly recover.
It's funny how oversimplified this war, and he made 3 long videos about it, and they were like, yeah, so
It took most of it.
There was this war, it was 100 years old, and Rome won.
Well, to be fair, they have to fit way more history in 20 minutes, so...
That's true.
Senator Cato the Elder began to finish every speech with the same refrain: Carthage must be destroyed. And so it was done. The city was wiped out, all of its population was enslaved, allegedly plowing salt into the earth as an eternal curse. Also in 146 BC, the Romans wiped out another city, Corinth, making Greece and Macedonia Roman provinces. Rome appropriated the colossal riches of the disintegrating empire of Alexander, but the patriarchal simplicity of Rome succumbed to the sophisticated Greek culture. Greek became, in effect, a second state language. The Roman nobility busied itself learning new words, hexameter, history, rhetoric. Cicero, the most famed orator of Rome, would come to model his speeches on those of the Greek Demosthenes. However, across this immense territory, full rights were only afforded to the Romans themselves. Even other Italians, the majority of the military, had no citizenship rights. These would demand equality, declare war, and win the right to take part in managing the state. This was a total game changer. While ancient Greece remained a collection of squabbling city-states, Rome gradually extended citizenship rights to the conquered, laying down the basis for an empire. Having conquered half the world, Rome fell victim to globalization. Cheap grain and an inflow of unpaid slave labor bankrupted the small farmers. These rushed into the cities and joined the ranks of the proletariat, those who have nothing to lose except their own offspring. At the same time, the rich grew 100 times richer, having bought land from the ruined peasants for a song. Previously united, the Senate and the Roman people split into 2 hostile camps. The tribunes of the people, the Gracchi brothers, would try to reconcile them. They proposed granting excess public lands to the impoverished peasants and suggested free distributions of bread to the poor. The disgruntled senators decided to suppress the Gracchi movement by force, killing the brothers and several thousand of their allies. Rome was gripped by civil wars. Social mobility for the proletariat was offered by Gaius Marius, a popular general. He began enrolling the proletariat into the army with a promise of a grant of land at the end of service. This would make the legions personally devoted to their generals. In 49 BC, 2 outstanding generals fought over Rome. Gnaeus Pompeius had won the eastern provinces for Rome, including restless Judea, cleared the Mediterranean of piracy, defeated Spartacus' slave revolt, and justifiably added the title Great to his name. Gaius Julius Caesar had conquered Gaul. Nowadays, they would call it genocide.
Except one
Except
village.
one
He butchered 1 million Gauls and enslaved as many more. He went on to defeat the Germans and then invaded Britain. According to the law, a general had to dismiss his legions before returning to Rome, and in return have his moment of glory, a triumphal entry into the capital to the applause of the citizens. Caesar performed a hitherto unseen maneuver. He refused to submit to the Senate, and having crossed the Italian border, the river Rubicon, marched his legions to Rome. It would take him several years to defeat Pompey the Great and his other rivals, pitting Roman legions against each other. In the process, Caesar annexed new territories and gave Cleopatra the Egyptian throne. After a romantic cruise along the Nile,
As we also know
she
from
would
the
give
movie.
birth to Caesarion, or Little Caesar. On his return, Caesar would add imperator or emperor to his name, title originally meaning victorious commander, and gain control of all political positions: consul, tribune of the people, and dictator. Rumor spread that Caesar wanted to declare himself king. Conspiracy was brewing in the Senate, and Caesar was assassinated. Caesar left his wealth, quite unexpectedly for all concerned, to his grandnephew, 19-year-old Gaius Octavius. This Octavian immediately joined in the power struggle. In 31 BC, he defeated his last rival, the warlord.
Is Julius Caesar the most known person in the world?
The most known person in the world?
He would be in the top 10, but is he the most known person?
I don't think so, no.
Who
I
is
think
then? Well, Jesus, but Jesus is like, it is a historical, he is a historical figure, but I guess slightly less proved than Julius Caesar. Because when I think, if you die and you leave a legacy behind, my mind always goes to like, okay, like Julius Caesar, no one is gonna ever forget that guy existed. Who else?
I mean, yeah, but it depends what do you mean? Because if you ask people today and you would go over the entire world,
yeah, that's what I mean. And
I think Michael Jackson. I'm serious.
Maybe you're right.
I'm serious. There was a thing how that he was as popular as no one else ever, and
Maybe
that
you're
people in countries when they barely had electricity, they knew who Michael Jackson was. And
Maybe you're right, yeah.
after him, there was no one as popular. And today's stars, like I don't know, Taylor Swift, they don't compare to Michael Jackson.
No, of course not. I'm asking, something that everyone would know in the streets, in the poor areas, and also a child. Like if you're 10 years old, you already know who that is. So maybe
I
Michael
didn't
Jackson.
think Julius Caesar would be in top 10. I'm not even sure if he would be in 100.
I think he would be in top 10.
Like even footballers today, like I don't know, like Ronaldo or
but it's
Messi would be more popular.
Yeah, but it's also kind of how about the longevity of that. So in 1,000 years, who's going to be remembered? If we will have to mention where civilization came from, so you'll have to mention ancient Rome at least in one sentence, then you'd probably mention Julius Caesar in that one sentence.
I can say what will happen in 1,000 years, because probably there will be like better footballers, or maybe there will be a bigger king of pop than Michael
maybe there will be
Jackson.
nothing because AI will be playing everything.
Maybe. But if you would still learn about history, then yes. I mean, Julius Caesar will be definitely one of the most important people in history and one of the most remembered ones. But yeah, like you said before, the religious figures like Muhammad, Jesus,
Yeah.
will be more popular. Buddha.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know if Julius Caesar is as popular. He is popular in Europe because he was the basis for like our entire continent. But if you would ask people in China about Julius
You're
Caesar,
right
I'm not
about
sure
China,
if they would
and
be
they would
like...
know Jesus though. Yeah, everyone would know Jesus. Okay, well, we can go on.
Lord Mark Antony, who likewise had an affair with Cleopatra. The lovers would take their own
Didn't.
lives. Octavian was left sole ruler of a vast territory. Julius Caesar ruled for 4 years. Octavian, assuming the title Augustus, meaning the Venerable or the Great, ruled for an endless 43 years. He didn't formally abolish the Republic. He simply took control of all possible positions, making his power almost absolute. But he modestly called himself Princeps, the first senator. And even though skirmishes with barbarians continued along the borders, inside them the period of Pax Romana set in, a period of peace and stability that was to last 200 years. The empire experienced an economic upswing. Bread was distributed for free to 200,000 people. On Augustus' orders, a 500-meter basin was dug at the very center of the capital, where 3,000 gladiators mimicked sea battles on real seagoing vessels. In Rome, construction was booming. Concrete and multi-story districts were growing. Augustus had to introduce height regulations, limiting skyscrapers to 6 floors. And still the
But that is one amazing thing that they were able to do that.
Yeah.
Those naval battles in the Colosseum. I mean, even today, I don't think it would be.
It would be such a massive investment to do it today.
Yeah, like
I mean,
imagine
yeah.
like a football stadium, you would try to do that.
Yeah, and also it's also not that you have the same boats every time. The ships would also get destroyed because these people are actually fighting for their lives. And I mean, you need a constant supply of people that comes cheap, but then you have to replace other things as well. So it would be a massive expense.
Even to just pump this water inside the stadium.
Yeah. Well, luckily labor is much cheaper, so then at least you don't have to take that into account. You can just force people to do it for €0.99.
One thing I wanted to say when they mentioned that the Octavius ruled for 43 years is that's an interesting thing about power. You know, if you're smart and you want power just to have a power, and you don't care that much about splendor, about your renowns, then it's much easier to do it.
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
if you're not
like
so controversial.
He was smart. He didn't want people to call him like God or like emperor of everything. He was like, oh, I'm the first senator. I'm basically no one.
Yeah, and then quietly
but he had his power. He had all the power in his hand. It's just that he wasn't so he wasn't bragging about this.
Yeah, and I'm sure he lived just as even more comfortably because he wasn't in danger.
Yeah, and it's even today. You can see that very often you have people in countries who are not like leaders technically, but they are controlling things from the back seat.
Yeah,
like,
they choose it smartly.
Like Tywin Lannister, in Game of Thrones, he never wanted to be king, but basically he controlled every king that was on the Iron Throne. And it was similar with the American Mafia. If you ever heard this story or you were interested in this story, when the American Mafia formed in United States, there was this guy. He was called, I think, Maranzano, and he won the biggest war at the time, and he basically was controlling all the mafia in the United States. And then he was like, okay, so now I have a new title for myself. I will be Capo di tutti capi, boss of all the bosses. Yeah. And the other guys was like, how about we kill you? And they did. Yeah. And then there was this other guy, Lucky Luciano, and he was like, this guy was a bit too much. How about we will do a committee, and there will be like a couple of guys, and we will be controlling things, but it will be like shared. And everyone was like, okay, sounds good. And it's still alive today. Yeah. The committee is still, I think, 100 years later.
So you know what to do.
Citizens were unhappy. They complained about traffic jams, pollution of the waters of the Tiber, and high rents.
Familiar?
The golden century of poetry dawned. Maecenas, a quasi-minister of culture, allocated special grants to praise the value of the state. Temples would be built in the honor of Augustus, and even a month was named after him. Thus, the cult of the Roman emperors was emerging. They would come to be venerated alongside Mars and Jupiter. After Augustus' power became hereditary, the senatorial opposition has left us vivid portraits of the first emperors. Suspicious Tiberius unleashed terror under the pretext of the law on treason. Under this law, any action could be deemed offensive. It was enough not to sufficiently praise the emperor or pay at a brothel with coins bearing his portrait. In distant Judea, a preacher refusing to worship the emperor as God, was crucified. Caligula wanted to make his horse a consul. A scholar and gourmet, Claudius, was too occupied with feasting and the reforming of the alphabet to keep an eye on court intrigue. One of his wives, Messalina, was giving women of easy virtue a run for their money in the brothels, and the other, Agrippina, poisoned Claudius with mushrooms to enthrone her son from another marriage, Nero. Nero, believing that he was a born actor, not an emperor, would later kill his own mother, and then allegedly the apostles Peter and Paul. Then he again, allegedly, set fire to Rome so as to read the verses on the fall of Troy during the blaze. He would accuse the first Christians of arson and initiated their persecution. And finally, he took his own life. Most details of this era are known from Tacitus, a historian and senator who observed the degradation of republican institutions. Fate of the empire was now decided not so much by the Senate as by the Praetorian Guards, the emperor's personal security force, created back in the times of Augustus. These suffocated Tiberius with a cushion, slayed Caligula by the sword, and hailed Claudius emperor. In all fairness, at the same time, the empire grew, expanding into new territories. Roman legions conquered part of Britain, where they founded a town called Londinium. Provinces were given a transparent taxation system, and the non-Roman nobility began to enter the Senate en masse. A grandchild of an Italian peasant, Vespasian Flavius would become the founder of the next dynasty. Vespasian and Titus, suppressing the uprising in Judea, committed genocide, again according to modern-day, not Roman standards, and reduced the Temple of Jerusalem to nothing but the Wailing Wall. On a lighter note, Vespasian had a jolly good Roman predisposition. He taxed the collectors of urine at the public toilets. And Titus, the destroyer of Jerusalem, would nevertheless obtain the title of Merciful. After a splendid triumph, he opened the Colosseum for the people. Titus would be called the love and consolation of humankind. And after such festivities had depleted the public treasury, Vesuvius destroyed Pompeii, plague devastated half Italy, and Titus became a god. The 2nd century would go down in history as the era of the good emperors. Trajan was considered by his contemporaries the best emperor ever. Rome became a million-strong city, and the empire reached its largest extent. Rome connected her new territories via a network of paved roads. This system still determines the transport map of Europe. After Trajan's conquest, Hadrian busied himself with defense, erecting massive...
And that's an interesting thing. When you ask me this question, what I would leave for the people behind after me, you wouldn't think about roads.
Yeah.
And yet, this is the thing that is most important nowadays.
Well, after all roads lead to Rome.
Yeah.
For a reason.
He must have heard it somewhere.
He must have heard it, yeah.
Fortifications in Britain and between the Rhine and the Danube. Pantheon was built in Rome, the first temple to be topped by a massive dome, a real architectural sensation of the day, dedicated to all the gods. Hadrian would also include his lover among them, the young Antinius. More of his images have survived than of any Roman. The last good emperor, the throned philosopher, Marcus Aurelius, would spend most of his reign on military expeditions. In between battles, he wrote his manifesto for Stoic philosophy, Meditations. It was under Marcus Aurelius' son, Commodus, that the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, came to an end. He preferred a gladiator's glory to the affairs of state. Conspirators had the emperor strangled by a fellow fighter, the slave Narcissus. Rome sank.
Excuse me? Maximus Decimus Meridius?
Well, are you suggesting you don't like the name?
You know what I mean? It's from the movie Gladiator.
Yeah.
Yeah, they I don't know why they changed it. Of course he was named Maximus Decimus Meridius, commanders of the armies of the north, general of the Felix legions.
Into chaos. The next 100 years brought a sequence of random emperors proclaimed by the army. Taking their turn on the throne were a liberated slave, a fortune seeker who bought the throne at an auction, General Punic descent who would place statues of the former enemy, Hannibal all over the empire. a Syrian priest of the sun, and a former shepherd who owed his popularity to his powerful physique. In 212, Emperor Caracalla, half North African, half Syrian, granted Roman citizenship to nearly all free subjects of the empire. The idea that you could be a Roman in Judea, in Africa, or any other corner of the empire at all might well be the main legacy of Rome still in use today. By mid-century, Rome was already in the midst of such a crisis that the whole provinces were starting to split off. The Gauls, for instance, proclaimed an empire of their own. Order would be restored by the son of a liberated slave, Diocletian. Having started his career as a soldier, he would end up an absolute monarch, an astonishing example of social mobility. Diocletian split the empire into four, with four co-rulers at four capitals, situated closer to the frontier. Rome lost its significance. The Senate became a town council. The country was now ruled by an army of officials personally reporting to the emperor. Thus, the ancient world, centered around the concept of a free community and free citizens, came to an end. From the princeps, the first senator, the emperor had become the dominus, a title by which slaves addressed their masters. The citizen became a subject, the warrior turned into a soldier, and the farmer a semi-serf. Diocletian himself resigned from the post of emperor 20 years later and went off to his estate to grow cabbages.
Why not?
I respect that.
After Diocletian's departure, the co-rulers were fighting for power. Constantine, the future Saint Constantine the Great, emerging victorious. Before the crucial battle for Rome, he allegedly had a vision of a cross. After this, he made all religions equal. After 300 years of persecutions, the Christians came out of the catacombs and were now entitled to build churches alongside the temples of Augustus and Mars. Constantine would take the cross from Jerusalem to the new capital of the Roman Empire, Constantinople. Theodosius I would make Christianity the official religion and begin to destroy the ancient temples. He would also be the last emperor of a united Roman Empire. His sons split the empire into west and east. The eastern half would live another 1,000 years and is known to us as Byzantium. The western part would fall victim to the great migration of peoples. Rome, founded by migrants, would fall to the onslaught of a new wave of refugees. Ironically, the last ruler of Rome would be called Romulus.
That's poetic. Yeah, that's motivating. But that's true. It was so many years ago, and like when you will look at the history of Poland, if you were born in one state, you were not able to ever reach anything in your life. If you were born peasant, you would die peasant.
Yeah.
You were not allowed to even have money.
Yeah, it's not like you could accumulate money for anything
And
or get education.
And here in Rome, like it's really a good example of how a country thrives when it allows its citizens to thrive.
Yeah, well, you have more people who can do great things. So of course.
Yeah, it's not like you need to be born in some kind of family to be able to lead people.
Exactly. If you have a smaller pool of people to choose from,
But
that's
that's amazing. This story at the end. I've never heard this.
No,
like,
me neither.
You were selling bread, and now you still have a monument. Imagine, and you have hundreds of thousands of people coming to Rome, as a tourists, and they visit your grave because you were so rich, you were able to put yourself and your
Yeah,
wife
it's
a
really-
monument.
Really a monument to hard work. You just have to get up at 4 a.m. and jog for an hour every day. And then you can have a monument.
and sell bread.
I really liked this video. I liked it was kind of energetic, the narration. Also not so somber as it is sometimes.
Yeah.
I liked it, the music and everything. Yeah. I
But-
think it was well explained as well. I mean, it helped that we knew most of these things. I mean, not in much more detail than explained, but it wasn't like
But
what
but
happened
you-
there
you-
because
Yeah.
you know more or less what happened.
But they did a lot of shortcuts. Like they started talking about one thing
Mhm.
and then bam, they were talking about the other.
Yeah, but it was only 20 minutes, so
Yeah. I don't know what I expected. I mean, it was very good, but I hoped that I will learn, like, gather so much knowledge in 20 minutes.
no, I don't think we've learned much new things. Well, about this guy,
Yeah.
but it was nice for like summary or something.
Yeah, I don't think I've learned anything new that I didn't know before.
I learned about that stadium with the water. I didn't know there was actually water there for the battleships.
No.
I didn't know that one.
So it was worth watching then.
It was worth watching. Also, I like that there's so many resources right now. I'm sure people must use them at school as well. Like, imagine watching this video at the beginning of the introduction to like ancient Roman history. I think that would help a lot.
If we have any like history passionate people here watching this video right now, can you do some recommendations for like a book about ancient Rome?
Oh,
That would be like everything gathered in one book. You don't have to read like 7 tomes,
that'd be
but
nice.
like one book about Rome that would be interesting to read. And also it would be nice if you have pictures. I mean, it's not like I need a book with pictures, but when you read about Rome, you would like to see those things
Yeah, the
that-
architecture and
that
the
they are
people
speaking
and
about.
statues, of course. But in the book that I got you, who is it by? The Europe book?
Davis?
Yeah, there's not like a sizable section about Rome.
Not really. This book is like so condensated. I mean, there is about Rome, but this book is so condensated with everything, like literally everything. It's not only like military or just politics. It's everything in this book,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a good book, but it's difficult to digest.
Okay, I get that. Yeah.
So if you have
any
like a
recommendations,
book that it's like, light to read compared to other historical books. you
yeah,
know?
not like children level. You can
Yeah,
handle that, but yeah, something that you can actually sit down and read for a couple of hours. I assume,
Yeah.
not that you.
If you have
to
something like
digest
that,
it.
please recommend that to me because I will gladly look into it.
Please do. And thank you for watching with us. It would help us a lot if you left a like or a comment and subscribed as well. And that's it. If you have any video suggestions, you can also leave them for us. We try to watch them.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. See you next video.
Bye.
Bye.